Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, the place where we not only talk about what's going on in the gun world, but also how we're going to fix it together. And the content that we're going to talk about today is, of course, Biden's new executive orders against gun rights. Wouldn't you know it, they leaned heavier on the executive bureaucracies and branch powers because they can't do anything legislatively, exactly like we have been discussing for almost 2 years together now. Everything's going to be linked in the description box below so you can dive in deeper, and I need to hear from you guys on this one and send this one out because there's a lot of stuff here. Some smoke and mirrors, but some also incredibly egregious things. Like I said, everything will be linked. I cannot wait to hear what you guys think. And if you are new or you're a returning viewer, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and making sure you turn that notification bell on. We need as many of you as possible to get in here, get amongst the fold, be counted amongst family and friends, so we can pass the blessing of the Second Amendment along to the next generation. Thank you so much in advance for your consideration, and this content is brought to you by LAS Concealment. Now, if you guys are in the market for a holster for your freedom tool of choice, LAS Concealment might be worth a look. Their items are made out of Kydex. These things are form-fitted to every specific freedom tool you can imagine, multiple designs, inside and outside the waistband options, and tested by the most elite special forces. There's something for everybody, so check them out. There's a link in the description box below, and thank you so much to LAS Concealment for making this content possible. But my brothers and sisters, before we get into this, I can almost hear you saying, Braden, what are you doing? You're way behind schedule on this. You're absolutely right. Leave it to me to have jury duty happen on Tuesday, get selected for an actual case on Tuesday, while Biden comes out with some brand new executive actions and orders. It's just my luck. But we're here now, so let's break this down because there are things that we have got to talk about. This is, again, from the White House, link down there. Fact sheet. President Biden announces new actions to reduce gun violence and make our communities safer. Yeah, okay. Well, let's dive into how he's going to do that, shall we? Here's the high level. Today, in Monterey Park, California, President Biden will announce an executive order with the goal of increasing the number of background checks conducted before firearm sales. We're going to hit that one hard. Moving the U.S. as close to universal background checks as possible without additional legislation. The executive order will also keep more guns out of dangerous hands by increasing the effective use of red flag laws. Also hit on that one. Strengthening efforts to hold the gun industry accountable and accelerate law enforcement efforts to identify and apprehend the shooters menacing our communities. President Biden is also encouraging the Federal Trade Commission to issue a public report analyzing how gun manufacturers market firearms to minors. That last one. Remember how I said this is kind of one of those things where it keeps popping up and bubbling to the surface? Marketing to minors. The entire Ways and Means Committee, the whole dog and pony show we saw with the CEOs of gun companies dragged in front of Congress. It all has a head. It's all hive mind. It's showing its ugly head here through the Federal Trade Commission. Let's continue. I got a few of these things I want to share with you which are not great. This is the number one. The executive order directs the president's cabinet to increase the number of background checks by ensuring that all background checks required by law are conducted before firearm purchases. That part right there, that's the status quo. This next part. Moving the U.S. as close to universal background checks as possible without additional legislation. Without additional legislation is leaning heavily on the executive bureaucracies and the executive powers in the executive branch because they don't have the legislative juice to do it. They haven't his entire presidency. That's what we talked about in his first months. Anyway, let's keep going. There's a few things here. This is important about the background checks. Specifically, the president is directing the attorney general to move the U.S. as close to universal background checks as possible without additional legislation by clarifying, as appropriate, the statutory definition of who is engaged in business of dealing in firearms as updated by the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Now, I'm going to dive into this a lot more as we go forward, but essentially, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act is that whole shenanigan that they passed with Republican support. John Cornyn and Chris Murphy did it together. And basically, that changes the definition of who is in the business of selling firearms. So this is a hypothetical. These numbers are not exact. But if you sold 10 firearms in a year that were your personal property, you're now in a business. If you sold 3, you are just a private entity. It's that level. So once you change that definition, again, the executive branch changing definitions, shocker, then now you're all of a sudden a dealer and you're requiring a background check because you are now an FFL holder. That's what we're talking about here. Again, that's a hypothetical with the numbers, but that's what they're going after. They're redefining who is a dealer. It's real big in this administration. Improving public awareness and increase appropriate use of extreme risk protection or red flag orders and safe storage of firearms. So this one, they're not actually doing anything except increasing marketing and awareness. They're not making more red flag laws actual law. They're increasing marketing for it. Now, this is obviously bad because red flag laws are extremely unconstitutional and they will, I guarantee you, be in front of the SCOTUS at some point. But they're not pushing more of them. They're pushing marketing to make people more aware to use them. That's something else that we've seen. You will always know where the top of the dragon is going to go because the tail is wagging it. You've seen this consistently with gun controllers across the board. The tail wags the dragon. You've got everything from marketing to red flag laws to getting more dealers engaged in business. This is all coming from the bottom upwards. That's the way that this works. But let's get on to another one of Biden's little tendencies to talk about the PLCAA. Holding the gun industry accountable. The executive order directs the president's cabinet to provide the public and policymakers with more information regarding federally licensed firearm dealers who are violating the law. So you're putting a target on their back and you're publishing information about their personal business. Great. What could go wrong? We haven't seen anything like that go wrong in the past little while with a specific wing of the left. Yeah, we can do that. I can say that. The president is directing the Attorney General to publicly release, to the fullest extent permissible by law, ATF records from the inspection of firearm dealers cited for violation of federal firearm laws. I cannot wait until I get Tim on this on Second Legacy. He is going to tear that apart. This information will empower the public and policymakers to better understand the problem and then improve our laws and hold rogue gun dealers accountable. See where this is going. More data means more control. No, it means more manipulation of data is what it means. But let's keep going. It's not like it's private or anything. And here's the last thing before we do more videos, again, in subsequent videos going forward. President Biden is also encouraging the Independent Federal Trade Commission to issue a public report analyzing how gun manufacturers market firearms to minors and how such manufacturers market firearms to all civilians, including through the use of military imagery. So now, a federal trade commission is going to be able to dive in and provide reports on how private industry is going to market their products. What could go wrong? This is just the tip of the iceberg. I guarantee you, the more we dive into this, the more we're going to find creepy and crawly under this rock. And again, I'm really sorry I was in jury duty. I couldn't get out of it. You know how it is. Everything will be linked in the description box below, and I cannot wait to hear what you guys think on this one. See you later.